Um, Today I'm very excited to be here, and I want to explain you what is RAN and how we think that the younger generations will come into DeFi. But before jumping into it, I want to explain you a little bit my story, how I ended up here, how I started this. Basically, I'm Paul. I'm 20 years old now, but I've been building companies since I was 16. So the last quarter of my life, actually. And I started on crypto 3 years ago. 1 year ago, I basically wanted to move to New York with a couple friends, but at that time we were struggling with money. But I was doing DeFi strategies on several money markets. Obviously, my friends didn't understood anything about how I was making money and what I was doing it. So at that point, I realized, imagine having a mobile app that we all three that want to move to New York, we can use in a very, very easy way that we can just put side income every single month there, produce yield, and at the end of the year, use all that yield that we have produced together for paying for a light bill, for a water bill, or even paying for a whole month of rent with all the yield that we have produced. So we start from there, and let me now explain you what is Participaron and what is rent. Oh, yeah, sorry. So the first thing, which is the problem, which is that traditional financial tools don't really work for Gen Z. So they are outdated and they do not have any sort of mobile app to really produce tangible income with their savings without having to know anything about financial knowledge, right? So, for example, not just 2% of them use savings accounts, and that's a very good indicator, which they end up basically doing more risky things, which, for example, would be buying random crypto, doing gambling or lottery. One experience of this is that a lot of my friends, they've been doing gambling for a while because it's the only thing that they had to produce tangible income with their savings. So, as what I said, basically, we see that the 32% of the population attend for people younger than 30, but just 2% of the savings account are actually owned by people younger than 30. But we see that also 72% of this Gen Z are looking for ways to allocate their savings. So what we see basically is that there's an unattended market that is looking for solutions. So what we bring to it is basically a mobile app that we think that this is the best way to bring this Gen Z into DeFi in a very, very easy way. So basically, users are able to win big prizes with our public parties, save with their friends, with our private parties, and all of that goes in a very, very easy to use user experience. And with that fiat onboarding to allow everybody to use it, so no matter if you're crypto native or if you're not, you'll be able to use it. So we have two main core products, which are the private parties and the public parties. The private parties are the ones that you create between your circle of friends, family, boyfriend, girlfriend, or even communities. And then what you do is pull the money together, we produce yield for you on autopilot mode, and when you decide all that yield, you can use it for whatever reason you decide. For example, you and your family or you and your mates just put money together, and 1 year later, when it comes Christmas, all the yield that you have produced, you can use it for paying for the Christmas presents, for example. And the other one is the public parties, which basically are the ones that are hosted by RAN, and we do the same mechanic, basically. Everybody put the money there, we produce yield for them, and basically at the end of every single week, all the yield that we have produced with users' funds, we give it away in form of prizes. So it has basically a very strong viral component, which is that you can lock up money. For example, you could be able to look up $100, and you have the chance of winning 10,000. So this makes a lot of sense when you don't have a ton of money. So imagine you are a Gen Z, you are 25, 26 years old, you have $2,000 to put aside, but even you're producing a 7% APY, that 7% APY is not really interesting to you. Because as long as your principal is low, your opportunity cost of locking the money for that low interest is higher actually than the profit that you're making. So you're not gonna lock up the money. But if you basically can lock up the money, have the chance of winning way a lot more, that makes a lot more sense for them. So this would be an example, for example, that I would do with my friends. So for example, we wanna move and we wanna live together, right? So we're gonna put every single month, $300 aside. we will produce yield for them, and when at the end of the year, we imagine we produce around $1,000 for them, so they can use all that $1,000 that they have produced in yield for paying a whole month of rent. An example of the public party would be, for example, imagine Sarah deposits $300 into a public party that holds 30 million. We produce yield for them, and at the end of the week, we have around 50,000 in prizes to be distributed to a lot of randomly winners. So we have basically 3 tiers. So we distribute that prizes in 3 different tiers. So, for example, in this first case, we would see that we are distributing 30K between 2 people. Then in the tier 2, we're distributing 15K into 3 people. And then in the tier 4, we're distributing 5K to a lot more people. And doing it in this way, what we basically do is that we're creating a ton of different winners. And it's not just that makes more sense when you don't have that much money to win a prize, is that when you win a prize, you basically create a dopamine inside you that's way more exciting than just producing yield in a savings account. So we basically produce the yield with the yield aggregator that we have built, that which is slightly different than the ones that we can see now in DeFi. So we focus on 3 main things, which are liquidity providing in regular money markets. We always work with stablecoins to basically mitigate the volatilities. We don't just use stablecoins because we want to make that if users put $100, they can withdraw $100 at any time they want. We focus with that liquidity, basically with liquidity mining programs. Also, we do provide liquidity on money markets that we use also leverage. And then the other one is, imagine we just hit a bear market into DeFi. DeFi rates goes down. We also do hedge fund strategies that basically to allow us that if at any point we hit a long bear market, we have also another gateway. So, this entire project is about communities. So what makes a lot more sense for us is to build this also in a community for a governance way. We're issuing our token, which is a governance token that we'll be using also for paying the gas during the short term until we scale, and that we're basically implementing a security model like, for example, Aave does, to basically cover the protocol with our own community. Basically, a big percentage of all the yield that we produce with the yield aggregator goes directly to that security model as a safety incentive. So basically, token holders are incentivized to stake the token in the security model, secure the protocol, and receive basically recurring sustained rewards coming from that safety incentives. Also, users in the version 2 will have to enter with our tokens to specific public parties, which are going to be the community public parties. So imagine one week, we basically partnership with Maze, and instead of giving away money, we directly give away a car. So users will need our token to get access to that public party and have exposure to winning that car. And the other one is that if you create a private party with your friends or your family, and you want to leave before that party ends, you will have to pay a penalty fee, and that penalty fee will have to be paid in the token. So about roadmap, we basically now launch the first functional MVP on testnet. We're going to launch the first version of the product ending February, and now actually last week opened it the first phase of the pre-sale. We're going to do the second phase of the pre-sale of the token next year, as well as the token launch. That's going to be probably in Q2 of next year after we launch the product. This is currently the team. This is a slide that's really, really cool to show because 1 year ago it was just myself. So having all these people here is really, really cool. Notable people would be, for example, Sergio Fernandez or Michael Lawrence. For example, Michael has been on the space since 2016, and he sold just himself $4 billion in the last years in several ICOs and different projects. And yeah, that's all. Super.